All right, Danielle, thank you so much for sitting down with me to talk about your amazing documentary with Afropop Commuted. And we'll just go ahead and get started. So tell me about your collaboration with Afropop. How did that come about?
I met Naila at church, and the bishop of the church, he introduced me. He said, I think you two should get to know each other. She has a story and you're a storyteller. And
Mm,
from that, we connected. And
okay,
that's how it all began at church one Sunday.
love that. I love that. And what was that? What was that like? Having somebody say, like, I want to tell your story. You have something to say. What was that feeling that you were feeling at that time?
I was a little apprehensive
Mhm.
because, of course, I'm coming out of incarceration. I'm really just trying to figure everything out
Right.
and, reintegrate myself back into society. So it was kind of hard at first. As you know, I don't know if you know, but it took 7 years to shoot this documentary to complete.
Mm,
So it was a long, lengthy process, and sometimes I was really, reserved with what I wanted to talk about, but I did know how I wanted my story to be told. And
yeah.
that was something that I, told Naila up front. Like I didn't want it to be about a drug story.
Right.
I didn't want, a true crime or something like that because, I felt like that's not something, we need to talk about a whole lot. We need to talk about, mass incarceration, what causes us to get in prison from the first beginning, because
Hmm.
if we had resources, the resources that we need, maybe we wouldn't end up in incarceration to begin with, you know,
Right.
because the women, their stories are not headlines, but the crimes are,
Right.
if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. It really does. Like, and I really love the way that the documentary went about telling your story, just the different pieces and really showing you, doing things that you hadn't gotten the chance to do in a long time, getting your hair done, being, celebrating the new, the NOLA culture, things like that. I was really touched by some of the scenery um, in the story. But there was one piece that was really telling to me. You were going through a lot of your old paperwork and things like that. And you were talking about some of the importance of knowing the law while when once released. What did you really mean by that? Like what is how important is that for people to know their rights, especially once they are, released?
Because the way society is now with all the legislation and here in New Orleans, I don't know if you heard about some of the things happening in New Orleans. We have a new governor and he's taking parole and things like that. And you have to be prepared to fight for yourself because no one's going to come save us. So
Right,
we have to learn how to save ourselves and be prepared. You
right.
know, um, I communicate with some other young women, Arise Collective, and we teach people in the community how to fight for themselves. We can't depend on the lawyers. You have to know the law for yourself when you're dealing with this kind of, you're interacting with the justice system, so to speak.
I think that's important. Like one of another favorite scene of mine is when you were like mentoring. And I wanted to ask you, what was that transition like? Because, just kind of doing my own research, I know you talked about, like while you were inside, you really wanted to focus on mentorship for like young girls and things like that. So seeing you in that element, how has that transition really been? Talking to those who are going through the same, who went through similar circumstances.
It's been a really good experience for me. And I always told myself when I did get out that this is what I was going to do. So I committed myself to it. I didn't get paid. I've been going in there
Hmm.
for years. And that was something I wanted to do because I wanted them to know that don't realize your potential once you get here. Realize
Hmm.
that you're great before you even get there. And that's what happens a lot of times. Young girls, when they get in a position, then they realize they're brilliant. But then it's
Hmm.
like, now I got 18 years. They tried me as a dog. Now I'm stuck up in here, So I want them to realize that, they have potential. They just have to dig down deep within themselves. And I guess with me being there, teaching them or talking to them, because we both student teachers, I learned from them, they learn from me.
Hmm.
They would see that I don't want them to have to wait 23 years to realize, how important you are, how valuable you really are, and that you're great. You know, a lot of times we always say start at home, but we don't know what's going on in the home. You know,
Mm,
we always say, oh, it start at home, but some of the kids have some horrific stories, you know, about what it's like with their parents and how it is in their households. So we don't
mhm.
know first. So we have to find out what is going on in the home, you know, because that's what we say all the time. It starts at home. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's not a good situation at home. And so, you know, I want them to be able to trust me because, you know, we move at the speed of trust when we're communicating with these people and mentoring to them. We want them to develop some trust so they can have that open dialogue and they can say what's really going on. Because a
Right.
lot of young girls, we look for love in all the wrong places. And
Absolutely. Don't we now?
mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there was one part that you were talking about, kind of like your love-hate relationship for NOLA, but NOLA has such a vibrant culture. Was that kind of hard? Has it been hard to kind of navigate through that vibrant reality when in the back of your mind you're like, I don't really know. I don't really know what we're doing. How-
Right. Well, I had like the love-hate relationship I had with Nola is because, you know, when the judge sentenced me, he told me I had forfeited my right
Mhm.
to live in a civilized society. And I couldn't see a judge telling a young girl, 20, 26 years old, something like that, you know. And of course, I didn't know anything about conspiracy. I didn't know that I could
Right.
get convicted without any drugs. I didn't know any of these things. And when he said that, I still was kind of naive because I said, well, when I go back to sentencing, I'm going to tell him I'm a mother of 2 kids that needs me. But that fell on deaf ears because it was like, I don't think you know the severity of what just happened, is what is going on in your life. And I
Mhm.
really didn't know because at 26, you know, we're still trying to figure this out, you know. And that's what I kind of stress again, going back to the younger girls, like, listen to your parents. You know, if something is going on, go out and speak to somebody. Don't be shamed because we live with a lot of shame and guilt because we don't want people to know what's really going on. And we
Right.
can't get help like that,
Right.
you know.
Mhm.
And so coming out now, I realize I love the city. I love it more so now because I get to show them who I am in the city. You know, when I walked back in that federal court building, when I was taking a person at one of our clients through the clinic in there, and I saw the judge up there, I was just like, who would have
Mhm.
thought? You know, not in the arrogance way, but like, you know, it's so many times that we don't get other people don't get second chance. And us as African Americans, we don't get all this third and second chances.
Right.
That doesn't happen with people with my color skin. It's just the truth.
That's
You know,
right.
we don't get the second chance. So I wanted to make the best of mine, you know,
Yeah.
like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And people that's been impacted and people that are incarcerated, I'm going to go and try to show them the way.
Yeah.
Like, just let me lead you to this part of the world that we
Right.
don't have to do that. And you know, it's so much technology out here. We can, you know, it's too much available to us now. You know,
Right. Has that been difficult? Like, just kind of just seeing the growth of it. I can just imagine. But like what outside of ceiling fans, because I thought that was like really touching. What has been your thought process with just seeing the growth of technology and even legislations and the way politics and the world is moving now? What has that been like?
it's been hard for us technology because
Mm.
um I was just lost. You know, like I was like in a foreign place and now I'm back in a foreign place for me. It's like, okay, how I'm gonna navigate my way and everything you have to go on a computer, you know,
Mhm.
now they won't take cash and you got to operate everything. Even when I was coming through the line and I had a debit card and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. Like
Right.
people looking at me strange. And when I was in class and I started going back to school, I had to really disclose who I was because people would look at me strange when I told
Right.
them I didn't understand how to find this link. So I had to
Right.
tell them, well, I'm Danielle, and this is where I was at, and this is why I don't know these things.
Right, right. I want to talk a little bit about your work because you have navigated and transitioned so well. Once this clemency was granted, and look at what you've done now. So, getting your education and doing what you do now, like, what are some of the things that you want to continue doing, while you're in this space?
Well, I have an organization that I've been founded since 2017. It's called From Prep Rallies to Prison.
Mhm.
And I want to really go inside the school system and mentor young girls. I've been doing it, but I haven't really built the real infrastructure for it. But I think
Mm.
that, it would be good going into these different schools. I try to be relatable because although I am 56, I have like a youthful look about myself. And,
Yeah.
like, oh, she kind of look kind of young. So I try to relate coming there with my little Adidas on and my tennis shoes and, trying to make them understand I've been where, you're looking over here, but let's just stay focused in school because when I was 18, most kids, when they get to be 18, they can't wait. And that's a critical
Right.
age, because now you're going to decide what you're going to do with your life. After
Mm-hmm.
18, you think, well, I'm 18. I can't wait to get out this house and I'm going to, you don't know what's waiting for you on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to do that. I want to continue to fight for the women because I know I was on the other side of that story for so very long. But God, thank God, he showed me favor and I had a lot of favor inside the prison too, because a lot of times, well, not as far as education, but because the staff thought I was never going home. So they would just, that's
Mm.
meant she got 3 life sentences. She ain't never leaving here. Even when I would advocate for myself, and I would write people like CNN, and they had a young woman, she wrote me because she was looking up someone's name, how to spell it, and she came across my story. And she worked
Mm.
for CNN. And her dad worked for with Nancy Grace. And I was like, oh, I'm never
Wow.
gonna get out if we go on there. But she wanted to know more about me. And when I got the letter back and the officer saw CNN, he told me, he said, what are you writing them for? You're gonna leave out here in a body bag. And I was like, oh, really? And that would crush me. It was like some officers there, they showed compassion and some didn't. And they did anything to break our spirits. Why would you tell me that? I'm like, that was very unprofessional. So you don't
Very.
know my mindset, my mental state, what I'm going through. And you would tell me something like that on top of me already knowing that I've been sentenced to 3 life sentences plus 20 years.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff we had to endure. It was a lot of degradation and, you know, they talked to us in condescending ways. They just treated us awful in there,
Yeah.
but, I would, for the most part, I was very quiet. I didn't say much because
Right.
I didn't have a date. So I always had to play to
Mm.
win and
Mm.
let my words have counsel, be mindful of what I say because I can
Absolutely.
end up in a situation because a lot of times when you have a lot of time like that, a lot of people really don't care. And I
Right.
didn't even want to be that person that didn't care
Right. Right.
or become that person that didn't care.
Yeah. I know with some of your work with like at the clinic, fit clinic, it's a lot of resources, confidential medical screening, things like that. Those are the resources that are important. But you touched on the importance of mental health because it's a tough road to navigate. Um, and to your point, people do not know what's going on. Do you think that there should be more resources available for formerly incarcerated persons once they are released? Should those just be handed to you?
Yeah, it should be more resources. It really should be more resources, especially when I was having a hard time. I have pictures. I was looking at some of the pictures that was on the table in the documentary, and one of
Yeah.
those pictures I had on my daughter had on a red blazer, and I was having a really hard time. If you look at me, I was thin, I was frail, but I couldn't put a voice to what I was feeling because I didn't want to worry my mom. But that was
Right.
very hard time for me.
Yeah.
And hair wouldn't even lay down this way. It just was going up this way. And it was like
Wow.
really hard, but I couldn't say it. And when I did go to the site, they would always say, well, do you want me to give you some Prozac or you want no evaluation, no intake, no diagnosis. They would be willing to give me medication without even doing evaluation.
Right.
Like, no, I don't want to take any medication. I need you to hear what I'm talking about, why I'm feeling like I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And then at one time, I was a suicide cadre, where women that were going through having these type of feelings like they couldn't go on, I would go inside the cells and talk to these women. And I was like, I should be on the other side of this conversation. But I was like, well, if I can do it, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I use that. And in fact, me and my cousin was riding not too long ago, and this girl who I know was in Dublin federal prison. I saw her and I kept saying, I know this girl from somewhere. Where do I know? And
Mm-hmm.
she had mental health issues inside of Dublin. And now she's in New Orleans on Canal and Broad. I say, I know who that is. I said, she was in Dublin. How'd she get here? I don't know. But everyone knew that she would have these bouts and when she was about to have an episode. And they were
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Metz, can you talk to her for us? Talk. And I'm like, okay, well, what am I gonna say to her? But I
Right.
talked to her about it. But still, we need a lot of resources. I think when even inside we need those resources, because it's not like when we're incarcerated, they separate us based on our needs. We all
Yeah.
learn in there together.
Yeah.
No classification. There's everybody in the same place, as a whole.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You were telling me before we got started about this important event that you're working through. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's the Free Heart March and Rally that's going to be held in DC on April the 24th.
Okay.
And it's for the National Council. I'm the director of clemency, and what we're doing, it's 10 years since the women came out of Danbury and founded this place, and they had a Free Heart Rally 10 years ago. So
Wow.
it's the 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
And we want to raise awareness that these women need to be home, because prison is not a place for a woman to be. We don't heal. Sometimes people don't know, but even like I have to stay busy. If I don't stay busy, then I start thinking about all kind of stuff. So I'm always on the go. A lot of times at night, I'm up crying. Like I miss my mom. I think about all the time I lost with my kids. And, sometimes if I'm gone, traveling, I'd be like, well, I wonder if they miss me. They're probably used to me not being there anyway. Like they're accustomed to me not being home because I haven't been. And remember, there were 3 and 7 when I left. I come home to 2 adults. And I'm thinking that they're going to stop what they're doing and the world just going to stop and they're going to just want to be with me. And it's like, well, we've moved on, like we already have a life of our own. We've created a life.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me sometimes, but they're proud of me, but I missed a whole lot that I can't get back, and sometimes, if I think of it too hard, it just, make tears just start streaming down my eyes,
Yeah, I can understand that. I really can understand that. But you are definitely keeping busy. Like you are doing the work, and it's really from the little bit that I saw, the documentary is not super long, but from what I saw, you are so powerful and so passionate. And I'm really amazed to be talking to you. Because I just think more stories like yours need to be told. Just moving forward. I know Louisiana is very, very strict when it comes to their legislation, but what is something that you would want them to really change moving forward for men and women, adolescents, all of it?
You mean incarcerated or just overall? Incarcerated
For the prison reform.
Well, boys, start letting some of those people out, because even the men, a lot of times my whole mission is to end incarceration of women and girls. But there have been, like, one of our clients have been in there, that we serve at the clinics, did a 60-year sentence. 60 years. And when he came home, Rides Collected had to take him to go see a movie. He hadn't saw a movie.
Wow.
In a lifetime. And I mean, we have to start changing these laws to make, it fit the crime. Like prison is for rehabilitation. And if you're going to keep us there forever, that's nothing but slavery, because all you're doing is working us.
Right.
You're really just working us and housing us, and like, and as far as women is concerned, we're growing fast from the 1980s to now. Things are expanding with women being incarcerated for such a long time. I wish that they would revisit. I wish that they were, I wish that the federal system could bring back parole or something. And far as the state, I wish they wouldn't take parole, because, you lose hope, and with me, I talk to a lot of people that are incarcerated, both men and women, and I tell them all the time, don't lose hope. Never say never, because although he's the governor, he's not God.
That's right.
He's just a man.
That's right.
You know, and like I said, that's just the wall. And if you do your part on the outside, on the inside, and we doing what we do to help you on the outside, you can evolve from out of there. You can
Right.
rise. You know,
Right.
I believe that because I've saw it happen many, many times.
That's right.
But, you know, I wish that, you know, that they would just, you know, start revisiting some of those cases of people that's been in there for such a long time. You know,
Mhm.
a friend of mine, we were talking about it today, and she was like, "You remember Stella Nichols?" I was like, "Man, Stella been there a long time, you know, a
Mhm.
long time." And people been there, even when just say if they're ill. We
Right.
have people that's ill, like my son's, my daughter's father. He had a aneurysm, and he's
Wow.
the main candidate for, you know, compassionate release.
Mm.
But the judge said he would never give him an opportunity, nothing would change. And we have doctors to support this. We have women in prison with dementia, don't even know where they are anymore. We had one person who was in LCIW. She got to like stage 4 cancer. Her family was like, y'all kept all that time. Like, what we gonna do with her now?
Right.
You didn't see a need to send her home not before. So
Right.
now, you know, it's nothing. I said, are you serious? It was like, well, it's nothing we could do. You know,
Yeah.
we know she's gonna die, you know, but it's just so harsh. You know, we need to start thinking about some diversions to prison. You know, and they're steady building them, you know, they're building them all over. You know, somebody just asked me that I wanted to become a partner and try to stop prison. In Massachusetts, we have the moratorium where they're trying to build another $50 million prison
Right.
with mental health inside of it. Like, that's not gonna work.
Correct.
That's
Oh,
not gonna work.
yeah, there's one in Baltimore. Correct.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that's not gonna work, you know. And it's a lot of things that we should do, but we got to remember, you know, people make a lot of money off of prisons. It's a billion-dollar industry, as you saw the unicorn. People didn't know that,
Mm-hmm.
and I only went over there because, like I said, I was having a hard time. And, you know, I was like, well, they was telling me how great this job is. And I got to hear kids in the background. So that would give me life and like, oh, that's what that sounds like out there.
Right.
Okay. You know, so that was one of the reasons that I went, because my family, they provided for me. But then it was at the same time, it was like after 20 something years, it's like 19, 18 years. It's like, you don't want to just lay on your family because all their resources is dwindling too. You
That's
know, my
right.
mom was retired, you know, it
Mm.
was a lot. So I wish that they would revisit, even with kids, I wish they have, I understand some of the crimes, but we need to get to the bottom of it and see what caused them to end up in that situation to begin with,
Right. Absolutely.
if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It makes absolutely perfect sense. And I agree with everything that you're saying. Like, I really, really do. I only have one final question for you. Your documentary, it's already been released. What are you hoping that, I know what the documentary wants viewers to ask themselves. What is it that you really hope people, families of formerly incarcerated, families of current incarcerated persons, what do you hope that they get out of you telling your story so boldly and so proudly and so bravely?
That, for one, it is my story, but it's the story of many, many women that are incarcerated,
Mhm.
you know, and that you can kind of see where I see it, the intergenerational trauma that it causes of taking a parent away from a family for such a long time, you know.
Mhm.
Uh, it's not helping anyone. It's only doing causing farther harm,
Right.
you know, and that I would, you want to use that story to amplify, you know, I would, you know, like people would make stances like President Obama did for me and Mr. Kenneth Polite did for me. I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, and to be honest with you, that was the changing point in my case, because Mr. Kenneth Polite took that opportunity to read my case. A
Mhm.
prosecutor don't write a story for someone to come home. They don't
Right.
write letters for you to get out of prison. And my lawyer said that was a game changer because I was a leader. I was classified as a leader, but he took the opportunity to, you know, to see, well, this is wrong, and we're gonna right this wrong. And you know, as you may already know, Louisiana have the highest rate of incarceration. It also had the highest rate of wrongful convictions
Mhm.
in the state of Louisiana. So we need to revisit that, and you know, like, and I hope that from that, that we would know how important voting is. Because had President Obama not been in office, a lot of people think that voting don't matter, but it's critical that we vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for. Just go out and use your constitutional right and vote, because that makes a difference. Had he not been in office, I probably would have had a different outcome. And I want people to know that I applied for clemency 4 times. That was not the first time. And in fact, President Obama administration denied me 1 time and then the next time, but I kept fighting.
Right.
So, and again, they have to use, it was the executive branch that helped me out. The courts didn't give me any relief. Had that not happened, I would still be in prison.
Right.
So it's very important that we go out and cast our ballots.
That's right.
It's very important. Voting really matters. People don't realize it till it hit home. And in fact, I had someone tell me they had never voted up until he became president, when he was running for office, and that's when they cast their votes. But I want to say, well, don't stop now, because there are other people that need you.
That's right.
And, if we can't change the people, we can't change the policy, then we change the people that we put in office and create better policies that gonna help everybody.
Absolutely. 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 I'm a big political junkie, so everything you said is just music to my ears, and I can't wait to be able to share this and people are able to hear what you have to say. And I just want to say thank you so much
Thank you for having me.
for sitting with me and just allow me to ask you these few questions. And I am really, really excited for what the future holds for you and all of your future endeavors. I really, really do.